Well, it's not every day you get to see President Trump yell at Volodymyr Zelensky about not being grateful and not wanting to avoid World War III. I want to go through this story and many others. To help me do that, I have Tyler Boyer. Tyler, thank you so much for joining me.
Happy to be here, always.
So, some background. Tyler is the COO for Turning Point. He works with Charlie Kirk and others to put on these incredible events, go to college campuses. How many red and white Make America Great hats have you guys given away around the country?
I think we ended up somewhere in the ballpark. I think we had an entire warehouse here of, it was close to, I think 50,000 hats that we had given out in some way, shape, or form. And that doesn't include, we ship out a bunch to donors and people who give and all that stuff. But on campus, I mean, we had some of these campuses where we had 2 or 3,000 or 4,000 kids show up, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, this is just an election thing." No, I mean, this last week we've had Charlie on campus. He was down in Florida, and we had thousands of kids show up, and so this is a movement, and it's exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. The only thing moving faster than your sewing machines is the Federal Reserve printing. That's a lot of hats to give away. Okay, President Trump revealed today that in a private conversation between himself and President Joe Biden, he asked him point blank, "Who do you blame for your removal from the White House and losing the 2024 election?" And he told him that President Biden blamed Barack Obama for causing the loss of the Democrat election, for Kamala Harris, and for getting him kicked out of the White House. What are your thoughts on him opening up about that to President Trump, and his thoughts on blaming Barack Obama?
Yeah, I mean, it's showing a huge discrepancy in the left right now, and this is the problem that they have, is they don't know where to go. Uh, we arguably on the conservative side have a much deeper bench, and a huge amount of for that goes to President Trump, who opened up, I think, an entirely new, a new vertical, if you will, within the conservative movement, which is just people thinking outside the box and wanting to be a little bit more pugnacious and, think about things, and really patriotically setting aside your own personal business in order to get involved with politics. And that's now the conversation that exists on our side, where the left is kind of now backed and painted themselves into a corner a little bit with their very structured bench that they have, which has dissipated quite a bit, mainly because they've just been on the wrong side of a lot of issues, the vast majority of issues. But when you have kingmakers like President Obama, you it starts to become a very small room, a very small chorus of people who get to decide. And our side is the opposite of that right now. Our side is, we have too many cooks in the kitchen oftentimes, but that produces a much better result when it comes to candidate selection generally, is by saying, hey, we've got a person that more people in the community like, versus one guy that lives in Martha's Vineyard. So that's a good thing for the conservative movement. The question is, what I talk about all the time is party discipline. If the Republican Party can be disciplined, like truly disciplined, like have a really strong structure, understand everything that's happening, broad-based at the same time, then that's when you have really significantly increased outcomes for electoral success. And what we talk about oftentimes with people is, look, you got to have the money to run, and you've got to have the people to run, meaning you have to have the grassroots support, people who want to actually go knock doors and do all that work. And most of the time in the last 30 years in the Republican Party, you've had the former but not the latter. And now we have the latter and sometimes not the former. And so if we can get those things all on the same page, which I think Trump has successfully done more in more cases than other people, of having both those elements, you've got success. You've got a recipe for success. And so there's a little bit of give on both sides, but that's part of what our job is at Turning Point, is trying to find the best outcomes on both sides.
Okay. Right now I feel like the bench is deep for the Republican Party. And like, for example, when they were trying to figure out who would be the best for the vice president, we had J.D. Vance, we had Vivek Ramaswamy, Byron Donalds. I mean, just over and over and over again. It was really, really incredible. On my end, am I frozen? Are you seeing frozen? No. Okay. So I'll just keep going here. But on my end, it looks like I'm frozen. Okay. I want to go over something. President Trump and J.D. Vance, they're trying to work with Volodymyr Zelensky to end this war, to end the killing. America doesn't want to put up boots on the ground. We don't want to put up any more military equipment. And taxpayers, they're done. They've seen how much money has gone to foreign countries. Let me roll this tape. They got into a yelling match in the Oval Office, and then we'll react to it together.
Diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are
Mr.
not
President,
strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now.
Okay, watch this now, Tyler. He just said, America has problems and you're going to get into war if you don't give us more money. Watch how Trump reacts to this threat.
But you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this.
I'm not
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. But right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. It's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this
even
entire
today,
meeting, you said thank
even
you.
Today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
All right, so it appears Zelensky has shown up hoping to get more money, more weapons, and Trump is solely focused on ending this war and ending the killing. Your reaction to this argument in the Oval Office?
Oh man, it's so refreshing to watch, and I love, I think Trump's response is pretty expected. I mean, he does that a lot to people. We've seen this happen like 3 or 4 times already since he's been in office, where he kind of repudiates people on the spot, and it's really walking into a buzzsaw for most people. But I think what's really interesting and really refreshing is also JD's response, which he gives a little bit more of a wingman approach to this, which is like, hey, buddy, like, we're trying to solve this for you. You have come in here with a huge amount of gruff, lack of respect and appreciation. And I mean, you should be coming in here just, thanking the American people up and down. And JD's exactly right, is that you had Zelensky going out basically campaigning for Kamala Harris everywhere he went. And his response, I mean, it's pretty gutsy to come down to the White House, the Oval Office, and basically offend the sitting president of your your number one funder. And that's therein lies the problem. I think that Zelensky, I mean, I'll tell you what, I've been told by some friends I trust that are kind of more on the inside of these conversations is I think Zelensky knows that that faucet has been turned off. There's no chance to get any more funding. It's President Trump's been very clear that we're not rebuilding Ukraine. We're not dumping trillions of dollars into rebuilding a state that has been self-sufficient for so many years since the fall of the USSR. And you know that wasn't his goal. His goal was to come in and almost have this interaction so then he can go cry to NATO and to the rest of the European Union that we're not doing enough for them, and so he can go hit up somebody else for funding. And that's where this thing gets really tricky for him because I think I mean, remember, Ukraine is a country that half the people really don't like Zelensky that much. And you could argue it's more. That's part of the reason why they haven't held an election for so long. They just put off the election, uh, you know, called for pushing that off. But you have a circumstance where he could become extraordinarily unpopular to the point where he may not be able to step foot back in Ukraine if he's not careful about how he reacts. And there's a lot of pro-Russia Ukrainians. There's a lot of Ukrainians that aren't necessarily pro-Russia, but aren't also really trusting the leadership of Zelensky. I would say there's probably a minority of people. I wouldn't say a super minority, but probably around 30% of the country who probably trust Zelensky's moves here. And I don't think anything that he just said earned him any greater ground with his own people.
Yeah, I mean, Trump has been very clear for 18 months. I want this war to end. I'm not giving you any more money. So then to come there and try and pick a fight while the mainstream media is recording, I don't think it did him very many favors. And Trump has already put out on Truth Social, I'll just read this. He said, we had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learned that could never be understood without conversation under such fire and pressure. It's amazing what comes out through emotion. And I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace if America is involved, because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage. I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he's ready for peace. So I feel like we're about to see President Trump pivot from supporting Ukraine and trying to work with Putin to maybe even abandoning Ukraine and saying, Europe, he's your problem now. We're not getting involved. I don't know. Where do you see this going? It's obvious that Trump is basically at the end of his rope.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the reality with Russia is, if Russia wanted to start World War III, they would have ignored everything and just moved forward and just obliterated. And they haven't done that. They've lost a lot of lives on both sides of this fight. This has been an issue that's been going on since the Orange Revolution, when our government helped ignite these things in Ukraine, just a little bit more than a decade ago. And really it was longer than a decade because they were working on this behind the scenes for a decade before that. And we've seen nothing but political instability. In fact, it was a huge loss after the quote unquote Orange Revolution, which, for your listeners, go study a little bit about this if you don't know anything about it. But effectively, the U.S. government was seeding, this revolutionary type thing going on in Ukraine to oppose Russian-based, positive Russia-based relations between Ukraine and Russia. And, it was back and forth. You remember the former president getting poisoned by Putin and there's just a lot there. That's not our battle. And if you know the deeper context, and I don't know if you know this about me, but I speak Russian fluently. Actually, I went on my LDS mission to Russia. I lived in the Don Basin, so I have a little bit more insight, and I have friends on both sides of this fight. I have a lot of good Ukrainian friends, a lot of good Russian friends who are over there. And I don't think either of them really want war. The viewpoint is that the space, the area that Russia is most interested in, they believe that those are pro-Russian areas that are uniquely and culturally Russian. And most of the people, and this has been seen time and time again, they speak Russian. They don't speak Ukrainian. They like Russia. They do a lot of business with Russia. There's
they voted to be a part of Russia at
they
the beginning.
voted to be a part of Russia, and so it's like at some point, there becomes this scenario where it's like you have really bad international implications that are happening because Ukraine wasn't getting this figured out. And it's almost like they wanted this war, and it took a guy dumb enough like Zelensky to like feed into the pro-war Americans and the pro-war Europeans who were like enticing him to continue to escalate this thing. And now he's in a funny spot because he escalated beyond his control. He made the wrong political move here and opposing Trump. And now he's in a really bad position, whereas people are probably going to lose a lot of faith in him. And we've seen time and time again in Central and Eastern Europe where people and I hope this doesn't happen to him. I don't wish upon anybody to get basically incarcerated and killed by their own people. But we've seen this happen in Eastern Europe over and over and over again, where guys like Zelensky get way in over their skis and they become inherently evil to their own people. And that's a really sad outcome for Eastern Europe, because I think that I don't believe that Russia is interested in going to world war. I do believe that Russia is very interested in controlling the areas of Ukraine, and that again, we shouldn't really take a position on that. That's up to Russia and Ukraine to figure out. That's not our problem. If every time we get involved with those border disputes and cultural disputes that like truly most Americans have no idea about, that's where we become over our skis, and people start to lose faith in our federal government. And again, nobody wants that. We want a confident leader, like I think Trump just led with, which was just like, knock it off, Zelensky. We've done a lot for you. You should be coming in here being with a heart full of gratitude, and that's where we can start negotiating how America can be helpful to you. But you're exactly right. The outcome of that conversation is likely the opposite direction of that, which is just like we're gonna remove ourselves even more, and good luck.
Yeah. All right. Let's switch gears back to America. Yesterday was a giant nothing burger. We've been told the Jeffrey Epstein files are coming out. People are going to jail. Names are finally going to be named. And then Pam Bondi hands out these binders, which are so redacted and so not new that people are now going, what the heck is going on? And then we find out that the Southern District of New York is purposely, maliciously withholding, protecting Jeffrey Epstein and those names. What are your thoughts on that story? And then we'll react to an Alex Jones story.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see more coming out here. I would guess expeditiously. I think what the goal was they were trying to drum up enough public outrage that would give Kash Patel enough cover to go get the answers. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. So there was public outrage. People are like, what the heck again?
I think it could have been look, it's difficult. It's like man in the arena stuff, right? So I always give people credit on our side for the Teddy Roosevelt man in the arena quotes, right? Which is like, you got to be the person in there to really know what's going on. I do believe we had some really close friends, close allies, a lot of Turning Point allies that were down, influencers that were down with Caroline Leavitt yesterday, getting the briefing on this and where it's at. I think that I don't think it's I don't think they handled that perfectly. I think the way they should have done was come out and say, hey, what I would have done is this. I would have put Pam Bondi on the steps of the FBI and said, and then have the influencers come out of the White House right after that. But like Pam Bondi on the steps of the FBI, don't even let the media know, just let a few friendlies know, and just say, hey, we're going to be releasing phase 1 of the Epstein logs here today. Most of this information is already public. The stuff that's not public or that we don't have is because the FBI is blocking it. We've discovered this. This is exactly who, what, when, where, why. And now that Kash Patel's in there, I mean, he just literally screwed in some new light bulbs and dusted off the his computer screen here and all of that. So we're going to give Kash this amount of time to get us the information, and we're confident that Kash can go do that. That Director Patel can do that. And I think that probably would have been a better. And then you have all the influencers out, with the binders, sharing things, reading it, and then, giving their takes on what they see in phase 1. But then you just keep doing that over and over. I think that's probably how I would have handled it. But again, you never know what's going on, how fast things are coming out. You also don't know who's trying to sabotage these things. Right. So we saw this happen over and over and over with Peter Strzok and others, is that, there's bad people within some of these organizations who will immediately come out and oppose some of the things that you'll say, or they'll try to undo it, or they'll try to come after people. And I do think that they're trying to avoid that. I think they're trying to do it the right way, which is getting the confirmation of everything and let Kash work rather than being a bulldog from the DOJ's perspective. So,
yeah, you make a good point. Now there's enough outrage from the American people that he can now justify being a little bit more aggressive. Let's see what Alex Jones had to say about this.
Historic developments have now unfolded in Donald Trump's populist battle with the globalist deep state. AG Pam Bondi's deadline that she set yesterday in a letter to Kash Patel to get her all the hidden secret documents at the Southern District of New York DOJ headquarters has passed. We don't know if she got the information, but we now know she's talked to specific high-level whistleblowers that had the documents themselves and were not told directly to give them to her. Thousands of pages, videos, recordings. And of course, we know that it came out in the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell that the FBI had all these safes, hard drives, and hundreds of notebooks, but they lost them or they got stolen, right? Well, we actually know who's behind all of this. It's James Comey. His daughter, Maureen Comey, ran all the investigations on Epstein and all the different federal cases there out of New York. Isn't that convenient? And then James Dennehy is over the Southern District of New York, and he's been the most arrogant person in the DOJ, saying we're not going to do what Trump says. We're going to dig in the resistance. He actually said dig in. Surprised he wasn't fired for insubordination back then, but he's going to be fired right now. And then let Congress have hearings and haul him in so he can defend himself. These people are arrogant, absolutely out of control individuals. They've had the Southern District for years with grand juries trying to indict my ass. I had to hire lawyers, all the rest of it. That's just some of the backstory you don't know about. Okay, these people are out of control. It is a weaponization, persecution, secret police factory. Okay, and they were running with the CIA Epstein. Okay, Comey goes way back. Comey, a lot of evidence shows, was one of the main handlers of Epstein. So it's not like he's protecting the deep state. He is the deep state. And Kash Patel told a reporter I talked to yesterday, he said, look, they've totally screwed up. We know they've been destroying this for years. We knew that they've been hiding it. We know they made copies. And now we've got them in the obstruction. So there's more than one way to skin a cat. Patel's real. Bondi's real. These guys tried to pull a fast one, and it blew up in their face. I'll be on the air at 11 a.m. Central covering it all. Harrison Smith's on right now at 8 a.m. Central at Real Alex Jones on X and at Infowars.com/show for the backup feeds. This is historic. This is a fight. It takes time to win. God bless you all. We're winning.
Okay, so Alex Jones was kind of subtly saying, be patient, everybody. Pam Bondi's real, Kash Patel's real, but they are going up against people that have been trying to hide this. Now we find out, at least I found out this morning, that James Comey, who's now being indicted and investigated by Kash Patel, his daughter has been quietly working the Jeffrey Epstein case. She's also the one working the P. Diddy case. And they're the ones bearing the information. I mean, this is like finding out Judge Juan Merchan's daughter is one of the #1 fundraisers for Democrats. Right. I mean, like, there's just so much corruption in New York. Your thoughts on Alex Jones?
Yeah, I mean, the general point that he's making is exactly right. And sorry, I'm losing my voice here. Is that you have layers and layers and layers that have to be peeled back for this to even start to come to light. And that's not going to happen with, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel just saying, hey, hand everything over. The big mistake that you would make is you going in, and it's probably the greatest analogy of this would be becoming a brand new zookeeper in a new zoo. Is you can understand everything about what it takes to manage animals. You can understand everything that it takes to feed and nourish animals, to know you're going to be there, but you're still there 9 to 5. In some zookeepers' cases, you're there a lot longer hours than that, like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. But you've got to get to know the animals. You don't know what they're going to do. You don't know what their problems are. You don't know. You got to build a relationship with these people before they attack you. And so you're going to have all of these problems as you have. Largely, I would say most men and law enforcement, good men, go in for all the right reasons. And you have this gray area leadership that exists, that starts to exist within bad presidencies, that has created layers and layers and layers. I mean, we're talking years of dysfunctional corruption that has happened that goes all the way back to, probably starting with H.W. Bush, who was the former CIA director, and how things are looked at and how things are changed and manipulated, and problems people have ignored because it's easier for each administration just to do that. Like, why would, in a 4-year term, would you take on these, really death spiral type of problems that exist within the intelligence agencies when you're going to be gone? And this is the reason why Trump is the only guy. He's the only guy that has the intestinal fortitude to want to do that, and he's going to okay it. And so I really do think that Alex is right, is we got to give the DOJ and Kash Patel enough time here to work. They don't need hours. They're going to need days and weeks and months to get some of these things corrected. I am positive. I do think it's a good sign. I think the way that they look at this is by talking about it now, it starts that process. I think the real problem would be is if they weren't talking about it, they were ignoring it and going, oh, no. Yeah, we'll get that later. You guys don't understand how much it takes. I think it takes a whole lot of guts for Pam Bondi to come out and start and say, no, it's on my desk and we're starting this, right? Because that signals to everyone in the other building, hey, this is a priority and we're not going to let this go.
Yeah. So a lot of the influencers that and that I watch on X and YouTube, they took a lot of heat yesterday. Like, you guys are doing these photo shoots with this binder only to find out, it's like heavily redacted. At the same time, I think it was played pretty well, because it's one thing for Pam Bondi to say, hey, I was given a binder that's redacted. It's another thing to have people that can collectively reach 100 million Americans and say, look how redacted this is. The government is hiding information from the Attorney General of America, the director of the FBI for America. So I think on the one hand, you had to get out that even top leadership is being blocked from knowing the truth of this big story. The question is why? Like, who are they really covering for? Who is James Comey and his daughter and Letitia James and Alvin Bragg and all those people in New York? Who is it that they're really covering for? That's who we want. That's what we want answers on, right?
Well, and to your point, it was a little unfortunate, I think, the negative blowback on some of these influential voices, and I think it's kind of degrading just to refer to him as influencers. So I apologize for doing that. But I mean, there were a number of people who were there. Our own Jack Posobiec's there, who has a massive background, in the intelligence world with his background in the Navy, and a couple of other people I really respect a lot who have spent basically their entire lives investigating some of these things, like Cernovich and a few others. But it wasn't a photo op that was set up. Starmer was there, the Prime Minister of Great Britain was there, and all the media was there, and they just happened to come out at the same time, and so all the journalists were there and just snap pictures like, oh, what are these guys doing here? And they just happened to be coming out with these binders. So I think it was kind of an unfortunate circumstance. It looked like it was set up by the White House, but it really wasn't. It was. I mean, if you've ever walked into the West Wing, walking into the West Wing down there, it's just there's a gap between the Eisenhower building and the West Wing, and the media they just hang out there because that's where everybody goes in. And so I think that it was a little bit of an unfortunate thing because the grassroots perceived this as like a setup thing, when I think, again, it was more of like, well, they're waiting, they're going to release it, they're going to let these guys go, let them kind of feed into it, and then, let them on their own free will kind of explain things as they see it, which I think is again, that's a transparent issue that an issue of transparency that the Trump administration is embarking on, which is great. I actually like the fact that they weren't overly setting things up. They're just giving everybody the information, and they're going to bring in different rounds and different types of influential people to help get the word out so the public knows what's going on. I just think, again, it's, you have this situation, this circumstance where it's like, well, we probably could have, come out a little bit more unity, saying, hey, this isn't everything. Here are the basic talking points. So then if you're sending them out to the wolves and the media is all out there, you're not losing the PR battle on that front. So
yeah.
Anyways.
Okay. Final story. One person who has been moving very quickly and getting things done is Marco Rubio. I was for Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. I know within my YouTube community, there was some mixed feelings about him. But I think he's been doing a great job. I'm going to add this to the screen here. So last night, President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio secured the ability to extradite 29 of the top Mexican cartel leaders. These are people that they're responsible for women and children being trafficked and violated. These people are responsible for hundreds of thousands of Americans dying from fentanyl. Mexico gave these people up. They're now going to be tried in a court of law. Anyway, it's kind of a big deal as we go after the Mexican cartel. What are your thoughts on Mexico giving these 29 top Mexican cartel leaders up to President Trump and Marco Rubio?
Yeah, I mean, I got a chance this last election cycle to talk with Marco for about an hour. And a lot of the reservations that a lot of your viewers have, I totally feel, because Marco has had this very strange, I wouldn't say, I guess strange is the wrong way to put it, but it's a very interesting pathway that he's taken, because it wasn't that long ago, it was, about a decade ago, that Marco Rubio was really involved with the Gang of Eight bill on immigration. And now if you talk to him, it's almost like you're not talking to even the same guy. And so, in that conversation I had, I got to pick his brain on some really specific things. And I'll tell you, I was very impressed with his journey, with how forthright he was about being, maybe a little bit off about some of those things. And when I say a little bit off, I mean very off on some of those topics. And he's a great face. I mean, you're mentioning some of these interviews that he's done. He has been a bold defender of the president, and there's been nothing that has gone on so far that has been concerning in any way. And he's been just a great face and great voice on behalf of the United States. And I don't know if you get this, but he just has looked strong. Out of everybody, like every interview he gives, he is bold-faced, stone-faced, uh, very defensive on the go. The old Marco Rubio was kind of like this kind of jolly guy that would just be like laugh things off and try to be cool. He's moved into a different territory where he's not trying to be cool at all. He's a reporter asks him questions, he'll push back immediately. He's very concise with his thought process, and you gotta love that about a Secretary of State.
Yeah.
So I'm excited because I think that again, when you have a competent Secretary of State, he may be the most competent Secretary of State in since Reagan era, that we've had. And it couldn't come at a better time when we have so many problems in the world that have been caused between the neocons and the neocons masquerading as Democrats or vice versa, especially the last 4 years. So I think he's doing a really tremendous job, and I'm really excited to see where he goes, because I think the president's going to really have to lean in on him with some of these conflicts, particularly when it comes to what's going on with Ukraine right now.
Yeah, I agree. He's done a great job. I think he is also going to be a major asset for growing the Republican Party with Latinos and Hispanics. I think Trump it became pretty obvious at that first cabinet meeting earlier this week that Trump has put together just an all-star team of people that love America. They want it to succeed and be better. So I, for one, am really optimistic about the future. Tyler, thank you so much for everything that you do. Turning Point definitely played a major role in the re-election of Donald J. Trump. For that, I'm grateful. You guys are doing incredible work helping the next generation understand the value of God and family and good government. I'm just really, really excited about that. Any big things coming up or events, or is December the next big event?
Yeah, so we've got some big things happening right now, and we're focused already on the next moves for 2026 and 2028. So we're looking at 2028 right now and going, okay, what do we have to do to keep saving the country? Because it's going to take a lot longer than 4 years to save the country. And so that starts with walking backwards to 2026. And so right now we're doing some big things. Wisconsin has a massive Supreme Court race that everybody needs to be aware of, because it doesn't have implications just for Wisconsin. It can affect the entire country. And the reason is if they lose the Supreme Court in Wisconsin, the amount of detriment that will occur, even including election law rollbacks and changes in Wisconsin that will impact the blue wall for future presidential elections. But they could even redistrict. This is like the game that the left is playing, is they're trying to, normally it was, redistricting will happen. It happens every 10 years and everyone just agrees to it and we move on. No, now that's not what they're doing now. Now they're equipping the courts to try to undo all the boundaries for all the lines, especially for Congress. And Congress, as you know, we're hanging on by a hair of a majority, and our majority is made up of some really bad people, including some good Tea Party and Freedom Caucus people as well. And so it's a sketchy situation down Congress. But if Wisconsin and a couple other states, have Democrats redistrict those places because the courts allow them to, we could lose the majority just on that, and then basically kiss Congress goodbye. You have a miserable 2 years where they're going to try to impeach the president over and over and over again and do all sorts of crazy stuff. And that's going to send us into instability like anything else. So we really need help. The Supreme Court race is on April 1st. You can go to tpaction.com/100 to get involved. You can do phone calls, write postcards, do text messages from anywhere in the country. If you're in Wisconsin, we're going to be doing a lot of Super Chase events. We'll have hotels available for people to travel to Wisconsin to do door knocking for a week. It's beautiful weather. Last week, of March. Usually it starts to warm up in Wisconsin. So we'll put you right in Waukesha, which is the heartbeat of all Republican votes we need to chase. And in addition to that, we're doing some other things, kind of fun thing that we're doing right now. The co-chair, one of the prominent co-chairs who's out of Arizona for Republicans for Harris, is a councilwoman out of Mesa, Arizona, which is my hometown. And we're working with the grassroots there to help get petitions to recall her. So and she was a hugely prominent voice. The mayor of Mesa spoke at the DNC as one of the largest cities in America that was Republican held, that they were trying to attack the president with. And so she's really become the face of that. And so if you're in Arizona or anywhere near Arizona, you can also get involved by helping with that. That's going to be a little bit down the road here later this year, because we're going to take a prominent role in that to hopefully get a scout for the conservative movement to say, hey, you can't be a fraud and pretend to support the Democrats while allegedly being a Republican. We're going to expose you on that. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, Republicans for Harris might be the dumbest sentence I've heard this week.
Oh, no, and this woman, it's so funny today. Funny story, I don't mean to get off track here. Our team is out, while we're talking right now, our team is out collecting petition signatures to support the grassroots on her recall. So they only need a few thousand petition signatures to recall her, start the recall process, I should say. But as they were out knocking doors, this lady is so crazy. She was out walking around, watching them and trying to intimidate them and doing all sorts of crazy things. So, this is what we're up against is, we just want honest politics back in, which is just like, if you're on that side, that's fine. You fight on that side. If you're on our side, fight on our side. But we need good patriots to stand up, realize what's going on. And I'm just so proud of our incredible young people that we have on staff. And we have people of all ages, but they're all young at heart, that are working to recall, a person who really was trying to manipulate the public. And this is the type of stuff that the left does to us all the time. And we have to do for our side. And that's what we do at Turning Point Action.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, Republicans for Harris is not the t-shirt I'm going to try to become a millionaire off this week. So, Tyler, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to come on. I appreciate that. I'm going to put some links down below so that people can learn more about Turning Point. And I appreciate